Leon Draisaitl has been 1A to Connor McDavid's top dog status on the Edmonton Oilers for a couple of years now, particularly since Draisaitl has been at or near the top of the NHL scoring race. And like another star pair of players in Pittsburgh, the Penguins' Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, Draisaitl and McDavid are complementary to each other, bringing different skill sets to the Oilers.
He's his own entity. It's a different type of player that you have to defend when it comes to Leon Draisaitl. Big, strong guy, has great hands, great vision, and when he wants to, he can move. And I think a lot of that speed is sometimes deceptive, and it takes defenders off guard. He's not as big and strong and just all-out force like Mark Messier used to be. Mark Messier used to just bully players like that. I would compare him a bit more to Mario Lemieux. Lemieux was a big guy as well. Lemieux was a lot bigger than Draisaitl, but Lemieux wasn't a big, heavy force that would come and blow you up, and he used that body so well to shield the puck and protect the puck, and he had that great vision and those great hands. And Lemieux himself was also deceptively fast. You didn't think a big guy like that would be able to move as fast. When Lemieux wanted to get away from you, he got away from you, and I think Draisaitl to me is a bit like Mario Lemieux, maybe a little smaller frame.
I know Connor McDavid is Connor McDavid, and lots of people say, okay, if the Oilers make the playoffs, then Connor McDavid has to be in the running this time around for a Hart Trophy. But I think certainly Leon Draisaitl has been every bit as good as Connor McDavid this year. And I think last year people thought it might be a one-off with Leon getting all those points, 105 and 50 goals. A lot of people who don't see him all the time said, okay, one-time thing. And he might not score 50 this year, he might score 40, but he's certainly going to get 100 points, maybe more than 105 points if he stays healthy. And his status around the league has gone way, way up to the point where, at the present time, he's certainly in the top 10 players in this league, which means he's probably in the top 10 players in the world, what he does. And he has precious few games where he doesn't get a point. He's like Connor, has been for his career. Leon gets a point pretty much every game. I think he's very much proven, as long as you get him some players he can play with on the second line, that he can drive his own line, which is exactly what the Oilers want.
Leon Draisaitl has the same vision and awareness that Connor McDavid has. I think Leon Draisaitl passes the puck on his backhand better than anyone in the NHL. So he has that vision and awareness of Connor McDavid does, but what I think he does really well is he uses his body really well, and he has kind of deceptive speed. He's got that speed that you think a big guy would be a bit more lumbering, but he does have that breakaway ability from defenders, and then once he gets a step on them, he uses his big body and his big frame so well to kind of protect the puck. And I think that's what he has that maybe Connor McDavid doesn't do as much. Connor McDavid is all speed all the time. He does everything at 100 miles an hour. Leon Draisaitl is a bit more subtle, but when he does have to break away from you, he's able to do that and protect the puck. And he's got great vision. He's got a great shot. And I think he put that all together. I think that makes him such a special player. Now, there's times where Leon Draisaitl is not as noticeable on the ice as maybe Connor McDavid is, because Draisaitl kind of tends to go in spurts, basically. When he gets the puck, he'll take off on that speed. He's not playing at 100 miles an hour all the time. But he's such a smart player, and he's got such great vision, he's got such great finish. It's not a surprise to me to see him up there leading the NHL in scoring or battling it out with Connor McDavid.
Draisaitl was taken 3rd overall in the 2014 NHL draft by the Oilers. He made the team full-time by 2015-16. He really showed what he was capable of on the ice during the 2017 playoffs, when he led the Oilers in scoring. He proved to be a dominant force at least equal to that of Ryan Getzlaf, the Anaheim captain.
When he played against Getzlaf in the playoffs there in 2016-2017 season, and I think he had 21 points for the Oilers in the playoffs, and more than held his own against Getzlaf. If didn't outplay Getzlaf, well, Connor had to make do with going against Ryan Kesler, which is never much fun. I think then that's when the Oilers gave him the new contract, and it was, most teams' general managers were aghast that he was making $8.5 million, and they thought, oh man, that sets the bar now for all of our players and every other player. Now his $8.5 million contract is at least $2 million less than other players of his caliber. So the Oilers got a bargain at $8.5 million. If the real world, $8.5 million sounds like a bargain. We'd all take $8.5 million, but for a hockey player of his stature, I think that's when he came. He proved that he was a player in his own right.
Well, I think part of it came from his foot speed. I know the first couple years he was in the league, there were some questions of whether or not he had that, not that he was a bad skater, but whether he had that breakaway speed, that acceleration in his game. And at first, when he first came into the league, it took him some time to get up there and to accelerate and to get up. But I think he really, in his second year and his third year, he really worked on just getting that acceleration up faster. And I think that's what it is with Leon Draisaitl. He doesn't need as much of a runway to kind of break away from you. And we've seen that he does have the 2 or 3 quick steps that he can get away. And to me, I think that's been the big difference. Now, the Oilers did not expect this from Leon Draisaitl. They thought he'd be a point-a-game player. They suspected he'd be like an 75, 80-point guy. He's obviously going to get more than that. He's going to probably break that 100-point barrier if all goes well. So I think it's that ability to get away, that ability to create his own space that he didn't have the first couple of years in the league, and I think you've seen it right now.
And before you point out that Draisaitl spends a lot of time on the power play with McDavid, and spent a lot of time on his wing before he found chemistry on a line with Kailer Yamamoto and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Draisaitl has a reputation in his own right as being a key player.
He's always going to be tarred to a degree in that he's played a fair bit with Connor. And there's been some people who says, he gets all his points because he plays with Connor. When they're on the power play, Connor's getting his points because Leon's helping him, and when Leon gets his points, it's because Connor's helping him. So I think they're very much like Gretzky and Messier back in the day. Different type of player. I mean, obviously Leon doesn't have Mark's nastiness, but it's a double-prong attack when teams have to play the Oilers, and every visiting coach brings up McDavid first, but not very far after that they mentioned Draisaitl. So I think with a lot of visiting coaches, they're on par.
It's basically pick your poison when it comes to opponents. Together or apart, they seem to be able to do and put up those incredible numbers that they're putting up this year. And I think the big thing was that Draisaitl needed another winger that could think the game at his level, and I think they looked like they found that in Kailer Yamamoto. So now you can play them apart. But if you get in a pinch, you have the luxury of putting them back together because you have the 2 best goal scorers in the NHL. And when you have the luxury of playing those guys together, you think about the great tandems of the past, the Lemieux and the Jagers, the Gretzkys and the Currys, and go on so forth and so forth. The Canes and Taves. Those 1-2 punches become really, really special, and I think we're seeing that in Edmonton right now.
And just as you might imagine, given his physical presence, Draisaitl is a more vocal and direct leader in the Oilers' dressing room, a compliment to McDavid's quieter, lead-by-example style.
I think he's as Milan says, he's a very direct player. When Leon says something, usually he's thought about it and he says it. I think he's more direct than Connor is. I think Connor is more, let's go guys, blah, blah, blah. I think Leon is more direct. I think Leon is a more off-the-cuff kind of, you ask him a question, and it's a little bit on the controversial side. He doesn't duck it. When asked what would he do if Matt Tkachuk and Connor and he were at the All-Star game and suddenly the coach wanted to put them on the ice together, he said he'd leave the ice. Now Leon said afterwards, I didn't really mean that, but at the time he meant it. And then last week, after they beat Calgary, he was more than willing to say he didn't like the fact that Calgary goalie Dave Rittich had flipped his stick in the air like Batista with a bat flip for the Blue Jays, and it was disrespectful. So he says what's on his mind, and that's good. I mean, he talks a lot more than Connor does, I think, anyway, and he's more willing to say something that might be perceived at, that's a little bit of a shot at somebody, than Connor is.